Tashkent is a city defined by its rigid Soviet-era concrete grid. But if you know where to look, those gray apartment blocks eventually give way to a dense, sun-baked maze of mud brick alleyways known as the Old City. At the very center of this labyrinth sits Chorsu. In Persian, the word literally translates to crossroads. For over 1,000 years, this exact location has served as a physical convergence point for merchants traveling the Silk Road. To reach this historical epicenter today, you don't ride a camel, you take the blue line of the city's underground rail network. Commuters emerge through vaulted ceilings that seamlessly blend modern transit infrastructure with traditional architectural motifs. Finding this ancient trading post requires navigating a fully industrialized 21st century metropolis. It forces you to wonder exactly how an ecosystem built on hand-to-hand bartering survives while completely surrounded by a modern economy. Emerging from the station, the skyline is suddenly dominated by a massive, vibrant blue dome that dwarfs the chaotic market stalls below it. This structure is an example of Soviet Orientalism. Completed in the 1980s, the design was a deliberate attempt by architects to force imposing, brutalist modernism to coexist with the traditional aesthetic of Central Asia. But the shape serves a highly pragmatic purpose. Tashkent experiences a punishing, arid climate. The sheer volume of this shell acts as an impenetrable shield against the relentless summer sun and suffocating desert dust. This dome is a climate solution built at a monumental scale. It was engineered specifically to protect the fragile, ancient commercial way of life operating underneath it. Leaving the bright, glaring exterior and stepping under the dome, the temperature immediately drops, and the volume of the crowd echoes upward. Looking at this graphic of the market's layout, you can see a strict internal logic. The entire floor plan is organized into multi-tiered concentric circles radiating outward from the center point. This ringed design acts as a sort of spatial theater. It forces thousands of daily shoppers into distinct curving pathways, turning what could be total chaos into a highly predictable, rhythmic flow of foot traffic. Following those pathways brings you to the first major zone of commerce, dry goods and spices. Here, vendors sit face-to-face with buyers behind vast, colorful mounds of produce that have been dried to survive long-term storage in this arid environment. Piles of cumin, saffron, and dried apricots represent the exact regional flavor palette that made this area wealthy. These commodities are the physical engine that drove the Silk Road economy for centuries. Moving deeper into the inner rings, you encounter the absolute cultural cornerstone of the Uzbek diet, a dense, round flatbread known locally as naan or lepeshka. The baking process relies on a tandir, a traditional mud-clay oven. Bakers slap thick discs of pale dough directly onto the blazing hot, blackened interior walls, where they cling, completely defying gravity, until perfectly blistered. Before baking, the center of each loaf is pressed with a chekic, a heavy spiked stamp. This creates a beautiful geometric pattern, but its actual function is mechanical. It acts as an exhaust valve, piercing the dough to prevent the bread from ballooning and tearing apart under the extreme heat. This graphic outlines the strict cultural rules that govern how this bread is handled. You must never place a loaf upside down. You must never cut it with a blade. It must be torn by hand, and under no circumstances can it be carelessly thrown away. In this region, bread is a sacred physical manifestation of hospitality, respect, and enduring survival. Stepping out from the protective shade of the main dome, the environment undergoes a violent sensory shift. The dry, aromatic scent of cumin is replaced by thick, billowing smoke and the aggressive hiss of sizzling animal fat. This is the outdoor food court, anchored by the kazan. These are colossal cast-iron cauldrons used to simmer plov, a heavy staple of rice, carrots, meat, and fat. To move the sheer volume of food inside these pots, chefs literally use shovel-like utensils. Flanking the cauldrons are the shashlik stands. Here, heavily spiced cuts of lamb and beef are threaded onto long metal skewers and roasted intensely over narrow troughs of glowing charcoal, sending thick walls of smoke straight up into the chef's face. Navigating this corridor requires a basic set of survival rules. Keep small cash denominations ready to pay quickly, guard your pockets closely as you press through the crush of bodies, and remember that a polite smile gets a much better price than aggressive haggling. Finding a sliver of bench space to sit shoulder to shoulder with the locals, eating hot meat off a metal spike, is the most direct way to penetrate the chaotic, kinetic energy of this market. Pulling back from the intense heat of the grills, you can watch the wider ecosystem of Chorsu settle into the evening. Families haul bags of produce, and quiet negotiations continue right on the pavement at the base of that massive blue structure. This experience differs from the traditional Western concept of a museum, where history is presented behind soundproof glass and velvet ropes. Chorsu Bazaar is a rare geographic anchor, where the history of the Silk Road is still an active, messy reality, a place where the past is haggled over, torn apart by hand, and tasted every single day.